Alright, I'm streaming and recording, so hopefully this works. Okay, are we ready to get started? Got everybody?
Ready.
Alright, cool.
Yeah.
Ready as I'll never be.
Okay, so I'm Bender. Just so you
Hello.
guys know where I'm coming from, I started doing kind of sweaty competitive PvP when the game started. Did that on Yig and Camelot. Stopped doing that after about a year. And since then, well, after taking a break, I've been doing PvP, but not like super sweaty stuff. So mostly been doing Bruiser, done some other builds, but that's what we're talking about today is Bruiser stuff. I say that because I'm comfortable talking about beginner and intermediate Bruiser play, but I'm not comfortable talking about more advanced stuff. So I still watch folks like Whirlwhip, to get more advanced, Bruiser perspectives, and I encourage you guys to do that too. So if you like what you see here and you want to learn more, that's where I would go. Okay, so starting off, I think the most important thing to discuss is just what exactly a crash is. So if you guys are looking at my stream or come over here by the dummies, so just really quickly, what you want to do when you're doing a crash, just the basic one, is you want to charge your heart rune, right? So my heart rune's charged. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hit your cleanse elixir, right? So it's number 6 for me, so I hit it, and then I grab and I dead. Come up, hit, and do a maelstrom, get out. Right? That's it. That's the whole... That's Bruiser play, basically, when you're playing tight in a war, is you want to be able to do that crash. Okay, let me get to my notes, and I put my notes in Discord if you guys want to follow along. I'll kind of be reading from it, but, talking through it as we go. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is Bruiser, again, beginner and intermediate play. When I started thinking about what that means, I realized that I can't talk about that without talking about positioning and movement and war, just generally. Because I think once you understand Bruiser play, then, and only then, I would say, I think it's necessary, but then you get an understanding of movement and positioning in war. So that's why I'm talking about it. Just really quickly, I think one of the biggest things for people getting into war PvP versus OPR is you learn a lot of things in OPR that are good for OPR, but those things end up being bad in war, right? So like what comes to mind for me is in OPR, you can get in a clump and you can survive in that clump, right? You don't get out, you don't get space, you just start swinging and you go up and you just keep swinging and you jump around and stuff like that, right? You don't get space, you don't run away, right? That's the biggest difference to me. But yeah, just in detail, so in OPR, you're going to be up against, maybe 5 really good players, and you might have 10 other decent players on the other team near you. In war, you're going to have 50 very good players who are treating it seriously, and they're all going to be able to do damage on you in a clump, right? So you're going to have 15, again, 5 maybe good players, 10 okay players that can do damage to you in a clump in OPR, 50 very good players that can hone in on you and kill you in war. So you don't want to get trapped, you don't want to be a target. And specifically, you don't want to be like really close to other blues, right? So like if I'm here and I'm next to a whole bunch of blues and someone throws a grav well, we all get sucked in and we're all a target, right? So you want to maintain positioning, you want to maintain space, and ideally you don't want to be in a position where you and like 2+ other people can get hit with a grav and get squished together. Okay, that's the intro. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay, cool. Alright, so next we're going to talk about Bruiser builds. So I think the first thing is, and this is especially true for Bruisers, but perhaps more generally just in war, is you do want to go into settings, right? So you want to go into settings, you want to go into video, and you want to max out field of view. All right. If you have a narrow field of view, you can't see anything around you, right? This is how you can see the most stuff around you, is by getting your field of view to max. And then where's the other one? Reduced vertical. No, not that one. Yeah, tilt-based camera zoom. You want this on, and I don't really care about this, but you do want camera shake off. I think that's more for VODs. But tilt-based camera view, you want that on. If you have it off, this is what your view looks like. If you go into settings and you turn that on, then you zoom out a little bit farther, right? So I'm max zoomed out right now, and we got a little bit more of this little cart here in the bottom. So, and that's when you're looking down at the ground, and that's what you are doing in war, is that you're looking down at the ground. So you'll see a little bit more around you. Very important for bruisers. There are a number of bruiser, skill sets that are important, but vision is one of the really important ones, right? Knowing where you're fighting and knowing where the next fight is going to be, right? So you're auto-attacking somebody, but you see an opportunity, and then you, grab well that opportunity and get over there and start chunking those people down. Okay. Going back to my notes. Okay, weapon perks are pretty much set for bruisers. So let's go into the weapon perk tree. If you have different passives, like different, whatever you call these passives that you want to run, there may be some movement there. Like obviously anything where you're blocking, I wouldn't do that. Haste, I would also avoid anything with haste because of alacritish punishment, and that can be really painful if you're just running around with haste. Keep in mind that Deto, I call it Det, that it's going to give you haste, right? So you're going to take more damage. You're also going to have rend while you're charging. So if they're running alacritish punishment on their weapons, you're going to take a lot of damage. So just be aware of that when you are doing a crash. You want to be dodging when it makes sense to dodge, and you want to just be cautious. But anyway, you need to get there. You need to detonate. But every version of detonate has that haste, so just be aware of that. Okay, going back to the tree.
Hey, Better, can I add something to that?
Yeah, what's up?
Real quick?
Yeah.
Stone form. When you're in stone form, that's grit as well.
Stone form as a bruiser, no. So, I'm
just adding on to what you're saying about.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Detonate giving you haste. The same thing for people that run stone form that gives you grit. So
yeah.
if people are doing the damage, I forgot what it's called, to when you have grit, you can take increased damage that way as well.
Okay.
Just FYI.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's this one where you get damage reduction with grit. Yeah, anyway, and we'll talk about specific weapon perks and all that stuff. But yeah, that's a good point. If you are running stone form, for bruisers, I think detonate, I don't think this is true. This is true. Detonate, and specifically brutal detonate, is required. If you're not running it, you need to be running it. If you're 625, get it up to 700. If it's 625, that's fine, but get it up to 700. Okay, let's go back to weapon tree. Okay, so your abilities are locked in. If you want to run whirlwind instead of charge, and like you're running the artifact or something, okay. I would run charge. I think charge is better. It's your escape. And I'm only running one perk, right? You don't need these extra ones. You just need it for escape. You don't really need it for attack, at least in war. Gravwell and Maelstrom, required. We went through what a crash is. This is a crash. You're using both of these abilities in a crash, so you have to have these. Mauler is absolutely meta. I kind of like Bloodlust, but it also has haste, right? So you don't want to be doing that, and you're also looking at the ground. So, You don't want to be running Bloodlust. You do want to be running Mauler's Fury. The reason that you're running Mauler's Fury is to get Empower, right? So just really quickly on Empower, when you're hitting something and getting Empower here or with Greed, right, you're increasing your damage. So long as you don't swap weapons, you keep that. And that doesn't just apply to your Great Axe, right? It applies to your Detonate. That's why you run Mauler. That's why you run Greed. I mean, everyone should be running Greed, generally. But that's why you run these specifically, is to get Empower. If you aren't aware, slash damage on your ring is an Empower. Obviously, Detonate doesn't do slash damage, right? It does, Arcane. But if you get these Empowers, it's going to impact your Detonate. Let's see. And then, of course, Honing Stones are an Empower too. So with Mauler, you're getting Empowers slowly. With Greed, if you're hitting 3 targets, you're going to get 15% Empower. You're going to get 7% from Honing Stones. Let's see what else. If you're in Oblivion, you're going to get 15% Empower there. So there are a lot of sources for Empower, and you want to be getting those sources if you can. If you lose your Mauler stacks, it's not the end of the world. I think for a typical crash, you're really only going to have like 1 or 2 stacks if you're cleansing beforehand, because when you're cleansing, that might make you lose those stacks. But yeah, that's the theory: is you want to get those Empowers, and you want to do that so that when you do that crash, you're doing as much damage as possible in a very short amount of time.
I got one comment on your tree there, Bender, not to step on your toes.
No, you're good. You're good.
On your left side, you got feed there. It's the feed.
I don't know which one that is.
I'm not gonna shit on feed, but if you look right above it at frustration, you almost always got an S&S player on point. If you hit them one time, you get 15% in power for 10 seconds. I would say that is better than feed, because feed's got 2 conditions, right? Below 30% health targets, and you get 10% health. Another optional passive right next to Maelstrom, Mauler's Resolve on the left. That's a free 40 stamina if you drop below 50, which that can save your life basically. That gives you an extra dodge. So those are also those are also very good passives. So the rest of your build, I would say the 0.33 second Ruit, it is debatable to trade that for Mauler's Resolve and then flop the other 2. But besides that, everything looks on point.
Yeah, and I'm not perfect at keeping up with the meta, to be honest, because I'm kind of old school. I appreciate that.
I got a question too for you, Bender.
Yeah, what's up?
That Enduring Strike over on the Mauler side as well. Now, you're not doing a ton of heavy attacks with the Great Axe, and if you have 350 con, you already have Grit for the most part.
Yeah.
Now, that next one to it also grants 12% damage reduction while Grit is active. Now, does that apply when you're at just to the regular Grit, or does that only apply to the heavy attack?
Yes. Whenever you have Grit, 12% reduction.
That's a flat 12%. No, that's a flat 12%. Yep.
Not
flat 12% damage reduction while you're left clicking.
Right. Yeah, and you do need that to get Mauler's Fury, right? You gotta stack the passes over here. But yeah, 12% is huge, so you definitely want that. You don't want heavy attack stuff, obviously, because you're not gonna heavy attack with Great Axe. You don't want the block. And so this one, the reason I don't run it is because I do stamina recovery. I'm a stamina guy. I dodge a lot. That's how I survive. Again, that's kind of old school. You could be doing like slash damage or whatever on your amulet or whatever you want to do, but I do stamina recovery, so it overlaps. But yeah, that's a good point. If you're not running stamina recovery, which is probably better than me, then Mauler's Resolve absolutely makes sense. Yeah, and that's a good point on frustration. I don't think I do much damage or hit many people who are blocking personally, at least as a quad group and in war. But maybe that's not true, right? Maybe I
Well,
am, and I'm just not
anytime you
noticing.
Maelstrom, yeah.
That's
So
yeah.
like
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
Whip is great, and but Mika is another top bruiser, and yeah, he finds a lot of value out of that. I
Okay.
watch him too, just because yeah, any Maelstrom, any left clicking, basically, if you see a point tank holding up his shield, give him a smack. That's free 15% in power for 10 seconds. It's just a little. I think you get more value out of that than feed,
Yeah.
but you know.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Not something I've really thought about too much, but that's a really good point. So yeah, I should switch this. But I'll do it later. Okay, so that's the Great X tree. Any other questions on the tree or abilities? Nope. Okay, cool. I guess just really briefly. So since you're doing these empowers, right? Like I said, you'll lose these if you swap weapons. So if you go to your hammer, these are gone. So what that means is, and we'll go into this in a bit more detail, but what that means is you want to be using your Great Axe, right? That's your primary weapon. Your hammer, you can use it to finish kills, you can use it when things are shifting on the battlefield, but you want to be using your Great Axe, most of the time. Okay. Let's look at hammer, and my hammer tree is probably worse, I was just fiddling around with it, but I think these abilities are set. There's some flexibility with Armor Breaker, but absolutely you want Shockwave and absolutely you want Path of Destiny. The reason for that is Shockwave, it does, what is it? Oh yeah, it's with the weapon perk, it does rend. Yeah. So you want that, especially when you're doing a crash and you don't have any Great Axe abilities, you can use Shockwave to get a little bit of rend on that group and also to stagger those targets. Path of Destiny, it is really great at charging your heart rune, among other things. So it's going to stagger anyone who gets hit. It's going to be pretty quick cooldown if you're hitting a lot of people. But again, it does a lot of damage across different folks, and each of those ticks or each of those hits is going to charge your heart rune. So like one thing that I noticed recently is, because we were all watching that JDB Outcast War, right? But I think it was Whirlwhip, right? But he was hitting folks, getting his heart rune charged up, and Path of Destiny doesn't work on these guys. But once he got to like 80% of his heart rune, he would say, my heart rune is up. And I'm like, wait, what? And that's because if he did a shockwave on a big clump, it would then go up. So he was basically saying that as soon as I shockwave in the next 5 seconds or something, I'm going to have my heart rune. So I thought that was, again, a more advanced thing that I haven't thought about before, but something that is useful for charging your heart rune. Okay, otherwise on the passives, again, if you guys have any feedback, please let me know. These are just things that I picked up that seemed like they made sense, but I don't spend a lot of time, looking at all the passives. In Armor Breaker, I think the biggest thing with Armor Breaker, at least for me, is that it's very good at finishing kills, and it has a very quick animation. So you can hit somebody, and then you can Armor Break right after that, right? So you could even do like light attack, and then you could Armor Break, or half heavy, and then Armor Break. That's what I do. I also don't always hit my Armor Break, because I'm usually double keying, right? So if you charge and then hit, that works in locking you on that target, basically. So Armor Breaker, good for finishing kills. Again, Shockwave, you want to do that for rends or for staggers, then Path of Destiny, mainly for charging your heart rune. Okay, any questions there?
Yeah, so there's a facet called exhausted attack. So it basically reduces the regeneration by 20%. And so like if you BOD the clamp, like the whole clamp is like their stamina regeneration is reduced. So it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and I was running that, but again, I was messing around with my tree. It doesn't stack, so yeah, I mean, it is good. For stamina regeneration, but yeah, I mean, if everyone runs it, I think we're still good. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is good, but it's tough because if you pick that up, then you have to give up either aftershock or guarded sprint or prevailing spirit to make it work, and they're all good. So
Yeah.
and then some people like the light attack cooldown also because you can dog with that to get your cooldowns faster. But yeah, those are kind of flex passives, but the
Yeah.
rest of it is pretty much mandatory.
Yeah, I think I swapped this one out so I could take this, which I didn't have for some reason. Hardened Steel, which again, 12% reduction, just like Great Axe. You definitely want that.
Yeah, all your left side passives are what you want. Exhaustive attacks is nice, but I find more value with aftershock because both all your shockwave and your path is gonna give that 20% slow, which is gonna help a lot. It's gonna help everybody.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely a little bit of flexibility. And again, if you want to run something besides Armor Breaker, I think everyone agrees that Mighty Gavel kind of sucks. Wrecking Ball, maybe. And then Clear Out. So if you're a heavy bruiser on point, or maybe a tank, although I don't think any tanks run Warhammers, I think I've seen Clear Out be successful in those situations, but I do think it's a bit memey. So yeah, like if you're on an OPR and you want to run Clear Out, absolutely. But I think for War, this is pretty set.
Can you show your axe tree again?
Yeah. Yeah, and we want to swap that one for that one, but otherwise I think we're good. Yeah, and again, just one on charge. You don't need the extras on charge.
Uh-oh, I'm missing one.
Okay.
Charge is pretty much your escape.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and while we're talking about these, I'll just talk about. Sorry to interrupt.
No, this is your show.
Okay. But yeah, while we're talking about these abilities, Shockwave, for instance, helps with your escape with charge. So one combo that you can do is you Shockwave. I did that pretty slowly, but you switch to Great Axe and you charge out, right? That can be tricky if there are a bunch of people around you because you want to have a path out, but that's a way to, stagger them, get them off your back, and then charge out of that situation. Let's see some other combos. Let's see, we talked about attacking and armor break. Oh yeah. So just generally when you're auto attacking, what I do, and this is just me kind of being old school and focusing on stamina, but I'll attack and I'll dodge and I'll attack and I'll dodge, right? So I'm looking at my stamina bar, and when it gets full, I dodge. That's me. That's how I survive. I've kind of always done that. I'm sure there are better ways to do it, but that's what I do.
Plus, you have the opal at offset too.
What's that?
I think you have the opal rune glass right now.
Yeah, I do run opal. I'm heavy stamina. Yeah.
So,
that was one of
buff
the
your
main
damage, too.
reasons. Yeah, you want to definitely dodge before you grab after you stack up because the opal will snapshot the grab well damage. But if you're running a Jasper, it's not necessary.
Yeah, Jasper's
Just
good.
one comment on shock too. You want to coordinate your shock waves with your other bruisers because if you both shock at the same time, you're just breaking them out of the shock wave, right? So you want to make sure that both your bruisers aren't shocking together because you're giving them a free dodge roll out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you can use a shock to secure a detonate too. So if everybody's detonating and you got them grabbed in there, you can set it up. Plus you get the rend.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I have my heart rune up again. So we talked about the basic crash, or we didn't talk about it, we showed it, right? So that was Grav, then you come up, you auto attack, and then you Maelstrom. Right, so that's the basic one that you want to be doing. You can, if there are no vines or ice, instead use Shockwave in place of the auto attack. It's going to remove those empowers, but it's going to help secure those kills. So what that looks like is you hit your cleanse, you detonate, you get up here, you Shockwave, and then you Maelstrom. And that was kind of slow, the timing wasn't great. So it'd be a little bit quicker than that, quicker than your auto attack. That is another approach that you could use for a crash.
We had a question in chat earlier. Are we going to be practicing these crashes today?
That's a good point. We should. I think we can do that at the end. Sorry, I have a lot of stuff to cover. But yeah, we should definitely be practicing. And honestly, before this, I was just practicing on these dummies, just getting the timing down. Like again, you want to chug your pot, and then you want to do your abilities. So yeah, getting that timing down wherever you want to do it. That's something you can do solo, but it would definitely be good to do with your war groups and practice.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Holy cow.
Alright, where was I on my notes? Okay, we talked about Great Axe being main, so you want to use it when you're doing damage, when you're charging Heart Rune, when you're preparing for a crash or crashing. Warhammer is your utility. So I would say, and I mean, there are probably a lot of exceptions to this, right? Like, go with your gut, ultimately. But I would use Warhammer when positioning is in flux, right? You're not preparing for a crash or getting crashed on. You need to escape, or you're kind of stuck somewhere. You're going to be doing, more, single target. Well, I don't know single target damage, but you're going to be doing more damage with each individual attack, right, than you would with light attacks on your Great Axe. So, like, if you're stuck somewhere and you just want to start hitting somebody, you can do heavies with your Great Axe or with your Warhammer, but it's, I don't know, it's tricky. We talked about Shockwave for escape, and we talked about securing solo kills with especially Armor Breaker. Okay. Your distribution on points or on attributes, this is the meta right now, but you want to be running 350, 250. The reason for that is of course, the grit damage reduction. Absolutely you want that. It's very good. Survivability is key in war, and this allows you to run medium. So I think this is one of the big reasons why people are running medium instead of heavy, despite folks doing a lot of damage now, because they have this grit reduction. And, when I was doing those attacks earlier and dodging, so I have grit or I'm dodging pretty much all the time. So you're going to have damage reduction or you're going to have iframes just whenever you're doing anything. So that's why you
tumblers also.
Yeah. And let's see, I should probably go into... Oh yeah, so let's talk about armor perks and weapon perks and all that stuff. First off, there was that micro tier list on armor perks recently. To be blunt, I would just ignore that for what we're talking about. I think that there were a lot of points that he made that don't apply to War Bruisers. Like he said health was, I think, B tier or something, but he also said that health is about reducing, reducing a lot of damage at one time. Whatever that would be. Burst damage. Yeah. So health is good at reducing burst damage. But as bruisers, we're going to die from burst damage. And we're going to be doing burst damage, right? That's what a crash is. It's burst damage. So I think health for us is not S tier, but not B tier. So I'd put it A tier, right? He said that slash conditioning and thrust conditioning were S tier. I agree with that. But yeah, health I think is very underrated. Shirking Fort, I don't think that it's underrated right now. I don't think that Shirking Fort is very good. And I'll get to that because I'm going to do a little bookend at the end on IGVG, because I've been playing that a bit. But IGVG, when you put down an Oblivion, that takes away buffs. So, it'll take away your empowers, right? But it'll also take away that Shirking Fort. So if you have an IGVG on the other team that's spamming abilities, which they should be doing, and they're, in the clump with you, you're going to be losing that Shirking Fort. So, anyway, I just keep that in mind. That's why I don't think Shirking Fort is great. If you do have it on a piece, it's not a wasted perk for sure. Okay, let's talk about builds in more detail. So weapon perks, I run Enfeebling Maelstrom. Enchanted is okay. This was just a great axe that I got a while ago. I should probably upgrade. I run Enfeebling Maelstrom. I think that's meta. I can see not running it because you're really using Maelstrom for damage. Getting Weaken, you're not going to be the best person to do Weaken. The best person is going to be an IGVG for Weaken. But still, 27% for 8 seconds is pretty good. So I think it's a very powerful perk to put on your weapon. That's why I run it. Absolutely refreshing move, 100%. You don't want a refreshing move on your hammer, but you absolutely want it on your great axe. Hammer, Sundering Shockwave, Rends, we talked about that. I'm running Plague Crits and Vicious, which is just stuff. Sundering Shockwave, absolutely, I'd run that on the weapon. Okay. Insatiable Gravwell, you want to run that on your armor. I run 3 freedoms. Freedom there, freedom there, freedom there. There was discussion recently about Healing Breeze and Shirking Heals. I don't think it's amazing, but it's only 2 perks, right? You need Shirking Heals on one of your armor pieces, and you need Healing Breeze on your ring. That's manageable, right? That's 2 perks. So I think it's worth the 2 perks to get that. You can see I'm running health on a lot of stuff, despite running Ironheart as well. I think that's good. I think Ironheart is very good. I think health is very good. Again, we talked about it being a burst damage thing. That's why you want to run health, in my opinion. Let's see, I'm running 2 slash conditionings, which could be better. I'm running 1 thrust conditioning. So physical aversion is a wasted perk. This is a 2-perker, basically. So I want to upgrade that, like maybe for elemental aversion, maybe for slash conditioning, maybe thrust conditioning. You'll notice there's no strike conditioning. And for me, I just do the old school 10 and 10 for physical damage and elemental. But, customizing that is definitely something that folks do, and definitely something that's worth doing if you have strong opinions on it. But yeah, no strike conditioning because, again, like the way Bruisers use Warhammers is to finish kills, but it's not what you're mostly taking in War, and you're not going to be taking a lot of repeated strike damage unless you just happen to be next to a flail that's, just flailing around. Okay, that's my build. Again, there are a lot of other builds that you can run. I would say that Ankh is required for pretty much everybody in War, to be honest. Let's see, Tumblers are good. I was running Tumblers before Ironheart. Wait, no, I was running Tumblers at one point before Ironheart. I was also running Freedom at one point, which is, of course, the... where are they? The extra Freedom pants, so you don't need to run Freedom on your other armor pieces. Let's see. Regenerating you want, because that combines with Ankh. Maybe Empowering Toast, maybe Fortifying Toast would be better than Refreshing. You want Refreshing Toast, you want Regenerating. I think those are pretty standard. Okay, any build questions? Nope. Okay,
Ask your questions while you guys are here. This is what the workshop is for. If you actually have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Purifying Heart is good. It is good. I was running it, but I swapped out for Healing Breeze. Yeah, I would definitely do Healing Breeze if you can swing it. Slash damage is very good. Obviously, you need Hardy on the ring, but those are good. Yeah, that's a good axe. Oh wait, no, it's not a good axe. I'm sorry. It's not a good axe because it doesn't have refreshing move. You do need a refreshing move. That's a very good ring. I like that ring. That's pretty sexy. Okay, I don't know if there were any other questions I missed.
No, just people showing off gear.
Okay, nice. Cool. All right, let me get back to my notes. Damn, we're already half an hour in. Okay, so this is the most important part that we're getting into, which is... well, wait, no, I think I skipped something. Okay, so we talked about combos. Actually, okay, this is the most important part. So we talked about the combos. I should get my heart rune up. But of course, there's the basic combo. There's also a hammer combo, which honestly I'm not very good at. But you can run that if you don't have any great axe abilities. I'll just describe it because again, I'm pretty bad at it. But what you want to do is you want to do a half heavy, right? So you charge your heavy. Of course, a light attack with a hammer looks like this, right? A heavy looks like this. That's a fully charged. A half heavy is going to have you swing the hammer back and then go forward, right? So that a light is doing 2k damage. A half heavy is doing closer to 3. Yeah, that was a good half heavy. And then a full heavy is doing 4. So you want to do a half heavy because it's going to give you empower. Where was it? Gain empower on heavy attacks, increasing damage by 20%. So you want to use that instead of Mauler for your empower if you're doing a hammer crash. So a hammer crash, you would just do shockwave, right? And then armor breaker, basically. So you would chug your pot, you would hit your detonate, and then you would do those. For a standard crash, I'm going to do that again, just so I can talk about it this time, right? So I have my detonate up, I have all my pots and all that. So I'm going to hit my cleanse pot, I'm going to detonate, I'm going to grab, get in there, auto attack, maelstrom. Right, so that's a lot of damage, maybe like 10k damage or something like that, all in the span of about 1 second. That's the idea, right? That's what a crash is. It's a lot of damage in a short amount of time. You can see I just instinctively, I wasn't even thinking about it, but I instinctively got away immediately. You want to do that too. And again, in OPR, you can do these crashes, you can sit here, you can exist, you can dog people down in this same location. In war, you get away, right? And we'll talk about positioning here next. But like one thing that I thought was interesting also in watching that war the other day is that outcasts, one mistake that they made is they would come in, they would do their crashes, and then everyone would evacuate, right? If you're the point group and you're in a crash, you want to stay, on point. Like you don't want to run away, you want to be near here. You don't want to give up that space. If you're a quad group, right, you want to go back to your quad. But if this is your quad, right, if your quad is right here, you want to stay in or near that quad. You don't want to give up that space despite the crash being in your space, right? So you don't want to get a counter crash on you, but if it's just your quad or like you and you have proper spacing and you're playing loose again, if they counter crash you and like only 1 or 2 people get caught in that grav, that's a wasted grav. So here, on that note, let's talk about positioning, which this is what I was saying was the most important part. And here now we're kind of getting into the more intermediate level or experience level gameplay stuff. Okay, so now that we understand the build and now that we understand crashing, now getting empower and doing these crashes, they make sense, right? And it makes sense why you might feel like you're melting if you group up with other people and you're really close to other people and then you get hit with a grav. Like this is how you're getting melted, right? Okay, we talked about doing a lot of damage in a short amount of time. Obviously, if it's you, if it's 2 bruisers doing a crash and you guys time it properly, we're talking, what, 20k damage? If we have 4 Bruisers doing a crash altogether, and like I was doing like 10k or whatever without full empower, so you'll get even more if you have like a VG with an Oblivion down, right? But if we're talking like 4 Bruisers, that's what, 40k damage over the span of 1 second? You know, people die, right? Like, people die no matter how much they dodge, no matter how much they try to get out. If you're timing it right and you're doing all that damage in that space in a short amount of time, they can't get out of that and they're just going to die. Okay.
Real quick question. This might be a stupid question, but how do you exactly do a half heavy?
Yeah, so you hold it down until your hammer comes back, and then you let go.
Okay.
So light
You
attack.
turn white from when grit starts up and release. As soon as your character turns white.
Okay, yeah.
If you hear it thud the ground, then you went too long. If you practice your half heavies, you can spam them so you don't hear it hitting the dirt.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like it's a half second basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no stupid questions. Great question. Appreciate it. Okay, where was I? Okay, so we talked about the damage that's done in a Gravwell crash. If you're trapping one person in a Gravwell, that's absolutely a wasted Gravwell. 100%. If you're trapping 2 people in a Gravwell, that's pretty much also wasted. Okay. If you're trapping 3 people, that's a pretty good Gravwell. If you're trapping like 5, like, that's great, right? That's what you want. So basically, if you're just chasing a healer or something like that, you don't want to be wasting your Gravwell on that. If you're getting ready for a crash and you have your heart rune up, like, that's a good opportunity right there, right? There were 4 people right here. Do that, get them trapped, get a follow-up grav, all that good stuff. Now, crashes are typically called by the war caller, right? The shot caller. You can do crashes while you guys are still kind of in flux and not really around a point and not really kind of slowly pushing in or out. You can call those at a group level, but definitely if your shot caller is doing those calls, then you want to be saving those and you want to be doing those at the right time. So what that means is, and I think this is something that we just need to be clear on as a company, right? But what your shot caller would do is they would give you a countdown before they do a crash. So they would say, you know, crash, like I'm looking at top of point. They may or may not give a location, right? But, I mean, it does vary. Like sometimes they don't really know where they're going to go. They just know that a crash needs to happen. But they'll start a countdown, right? So crash in 5. That tells you, you know, crash in 5 seconds, crash in 4, crash in 3, crash in 2. And when they say 2, then I would hit my cleanse, maybe at 3, right? If you're going to cleanse before you do the crash. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as soon as it's 1, then you hit your detonate, right? I mean, obviously, if I was doing real crash, I should have been doing my other abilities better. But as soon as they say 1, wherever you are, if you're participating in that crash, right? Like if it's way over there, I'm not going to be able to get that crash. It's going to be wasted if I hit my heart rune. But if I'm right here and the crash is over there, and then they say 1, then I'm going to hit my heart rune. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to start wailing on folks, and then I'm going to get away. Okay, let me go back to my notes. Okay, so the other team uses this logic too, right? If you are keeping space, right? So like Sir Awesome right here, if I'm like this far away from you and then a grav hits like right here, we might get trapped in it, we might not, you know? If we have more space like this, we're not both going to get trapped in that grav well, right? Because that's how big the grav well is. It's what, like 10 meters apart, something like that? So if you have this sort of spacing with whoever's next to you, at most, you and that other person are going to get trapped in that grav, nobody else. If you instead come over here, and we've got like, you know, a bunch of people, and a grav gets thrown right there, we're all going to get sucked in, and we're all going to get trapped, and we're going to be that clump, you know, that crash. So you don't want to have this close positioning right here, because that's a very good opportunity for the opposing bruisers. So when you're in war, you want to play loose. You want to be doing that about 90% of the time, right? So you want to be keeping space. You want to be avoiding getting crashed on while looking for opportunities on the opposing side. Obviously you don't want to just be YOLOing in. I think that's pretty straightforward, but you also don't want to be too close. You want to maintain distance. I think of bruising as being like a lineman in football. You're kind of pushing and pulling folks. But for another football analogy, I think of like kickoffs where you get space. You kind of use the whole field. You want to be doing that too. You want to be getting space between other people, and you want to be avoiding giving the other team an opportunity. Being a target, right? Okay, let's see. We talked about comms and timing crashes and heart runes. Again, we get 5, 4, 3. Somewhere around there, you're hitting your cleanse. 2, 1 on 1, you're hitting your heart rune, right? You're hitting your heart rune. You're hitting your grav as you're hitting the heart rune. So you want to get that timing down, but again, you want to get that timing down and hit that heart rune on 1. Okay, for group comms, for me, I think Bruiser's timing abilities is the most important thing in group comms. Second is healers calling abilities and peels. And then third is everything else. So, if you're an IGVG, DPS, if you see something, say something. But generally your abilities aren't super important as far as group comms are concerned. And I say that because group comms, I'm talking about coordination, right? Coordinating your abilities. If you're another build, it's not as important that you call out what you're doing, because like if you're a fire staff, like where are you going to be throwing your abilities? You're going to be throwing them on the Gravwell when everyone is up here doing their maelstroms and stuff, and the maelstrom is going to force out ranged abilities, right? But, from the other team. But that's where you're going to be putting your damage, right? That's obvious. Unless you're off chasing a healer or something like that. For IGVG, and we'll get there, but I don't think IGVG, again, as someone who played it a lot, I don't think IGVG comms are that important. Because mainly you're just kind of hugging your bruisers and you're putting down abilities with them and playing off of them, right? Setting them up so that they can, have really effective crashes. For bruisers, you want to be calling your gravs. If you are sending out a grav, separate from a crash, you want to be calling positions. So where you are on point, you want to be calling where you're looking, right? And you can be using pings. I use pings. One thing I do as well is I'll just type my name. And, sorry, I guess this isn't so much for coordination, it's just lead bruising and keeping the group together. But I'll just put my name, and I'll do this before the war. But I'll just do that, and then if I say that, then everyone around me or everyone in my group, if I'm doing that in group chat, is going to see me and see where I am. That can be helpful in getting your group together and getting them coordinated. But yeah, going back to calling abilities, you want to say where you're looking. You want to, especially as a lead bruiser, be calling who you're going to dog down, who can die, so that you guys can all focus that target. And, obviously that's going to be separate from crashes, maybe after a crash, or if you just find a good opportunity. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I think that's
you can also toggle your chat bubble on, have your mic input all the way down.
Yeah.
And then it helps your group find you if you're like the lead.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think everyone should do that. I don't think there's any reason not to do that. I think everyone in War should. So what that means is you have your Microsoft volume down, and you have your Microsoft sensitivity up. And then you put always on. And now, when I'm talking, you can see the mic above me. You might be hearing me in game a little bit, very softly. But when I'm talking, your group is going to see this mic, and only your group is going to see this mic. So very important, good point for keeping your group together. Also, if you're a healer and you need peels, right, and we see your mic, I mean, that's going to help you get peels. So yeah, very good point.
Make sure it's group only as well, so that way everybody's isn't showing to everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So instead of it just being enabled and everybody seeing it, just make it group mode instead of enabled. If you do enabled, everybody will see it. If you do group mode, it'll just be your group seeing it. That way we don't have speakers everywhere.
Yeah, good point. I didn't even know that there was an option for non-group.
Yeah, it's the first option in social.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, let's talk crashing versus counter crashing. So we talked about us doing crashes, we talked about keeping space. And we talked about playing loose, right? So again, 90% of the time I'm going to be playing loose. When I say playing tight, I really just mean crashing. There are other times when you're going to be playing tight, like if you're going through a door, that's kind of similar to OPR, right? There's a very limited space, and you just have to play tight to get through this space. Let's see, what else was I thinking about? If you're on the final point, you're also playing tight. So like if you're in fort, you're kind of forced to play tight. If you're playing off point, then you still want to be playing loose. You want to be keeping space. You want to be timing abilities, calming and not standing, nut to nut with other folks. But if you're on point in the fort or coming through a door, those are instances where you're playing tight, separate from a crash. But okay, so let's talk crashing and crown crashing. So if you get crashed on, what you should be doing, at least to me, is you should be using hammer abilities. You should be using interrupts, and you should be getting out if you can. Generally, you want to be using your cleanse pots for the crash, and I didn't spell this out, but cleanse pots have a 5-second duration. And what cleanse pots do, among other things, is give a minus 100% duration to any debuff. Minus 100% means that you simply do not get that debuff, right? It's like Nature's Wrath with a minus 100% duration. So any debuff that has a debuff over time, that does not apply to you for that 5 seconds that you have the cleanse pot. What that means is that you can run through an ice storm, right? I think Scream staggers or something like that, but if you have a cleanse pot, the root is a debuff over time, so you don't get that root. So there are a lot of things that have durations that you simply do not get. And that's why we're chugging the cleanse pot before we do a crash. And also timing wise, a Gravwell a detonate is 3 seconds, I think. Let me go look. Where does it say that? Yeah, it's 3 seconds, then detonates, dealing 100% hurt damage. So that's why we're doing the cleanse right before the crash, is it allows us to get through ice, get through any debuffs, and it is a longer duration than the charge for the heart rune. So if you time it right, you're going to detonate while you're still cleansed, and that's also going to keep you from getting weakens, right? Stuff like that. So that's why you hit it, and then you do this and get your detonate off. It's that very short window of time, that 5 seconds, 3 seconds of time. That is why the timing is super important, because you're just focusing everything in on that short amount of time. Okay, sorry, I keep getting distracted. Crashing and counter crashing. If there is a crash, there may be an opportunity to counter crash. Right, so like if 2 or 3 people get stuck in a Gravwell and they hit their detonates, and some folks get out, they're now stuck there, right? They've just used their cleanse pot, it's now expired. They've used their detonate, it's now expired. They've used Gravwell, they've used Maelstrom, right? They've used all of those abilities. They may have used their pots as well, right? Like an arcane pot, which is here, right? It reduces, or it grants arcane absorption, What that means is you take less damage from detonate, right? That's why I'm running it, and that's why a lot of bruisers run it, and a lot of IGVG and just a lot of folks in general, so that it reduces damage from grav wells. This is my OPR setup. Definitely go for the infused ones. So they're going to be at their weakest point at that point, right? Everything's going to be on cooldown. They're going to be all trapped in a single area. So it could make sense if they just did a grav, like say Butter just did a grav, you can re-grav them and start chunking them down, or just call a crash there, right? If there's an opportunity for it, if you have all your abilities up, all that good stuff. Again, that's something that I wouldn't do very often. It's if you see that opportunity, take it. But if, you know, your team is trapped in that and they're doing the crash and they're getting chunked down, it's probably better to instead be using hammer abilities and interrupting the other team than it is to counter crash. Because you want to make sure that your team is surviving more than you want to be trying to get kills while your team is while they're getting kills, right? Yeah, fire pots are good. Any damage that you get frequently is good. But yeah, I run arcane absorption. Okay, if your abilities are not up, especially if you see an opportunity for a counter crash but you just don't have any abilities, just stay playing loose, right? You don't want to shift to playing tight simply because the other team is playing tight. Just because they decided to start playing tight doesn't mean we need to start playing tight. You know, if they do that and they don't get any kills from it, again, they've just wasted all of their abilities. They're going to be very vulnerable. We could call a counter crash, or we could just wait for a few seconds, find another opportunity for a crash, knowing that they just used all of their abilities and everything is on cooldown, and then we can call a crash, right? So that's more on the shot caller, but we don't need to immediately counter crash. That's fairly rare, I would say. Again, I'm not a super, advanced, expert, but that's my opinion. Is you don't want to be counter crashing all the time. You want it to be patient, and you want to stay playing loose when you can play loose. And until there's a really good opportunity for a crash or a crash is called, that's when you play tight. Okay, we talked about cleansing immediately before detonate. We talked about det timing exactly when the crash is called so that everyone is detonating at the same time. Okay, you want to be taking up space. And the reason that you want to do that is that you're playing loose. So the other team is playing loose too, right? If they all clump up and start pushing against us and we're playing loose, right? So like, let's say that we've kind of have a line where I'm running, right? We have a line here and then they just all ball up and try and push. What's going to happen, right? We're going to see that. We're going to call a crash or whatever. But we can throw a grav well, right? We can detonate, we can get in there, and we can murder them if they just start YOLOing in. Stay playing loose unless you see a really, really good opportunity. Just because they're balled up doesn't mean it's necessarily a good crash opportunity. But yeah, your default should be playing loose, getting space and preventing them from pushing through preventing them from playing tight as they push through, right? They should still be playing loose as well if they try to push through, because if they start playing, I don't know, I'm getting confused, but if they start playing tight, we should not be playing tight unless it makes sense for us to. Okay. Point tick. So, and this goes along with taking up space and playing loose. In war, one person on a point, one blue on a point is going to get the same tick as 50 blues on a point. That's how OPR used to be back in the day until they changed it. It's, again, they're just completely different ticks. It's like if you're capping a fort, right? It's a static tick, It doesn't increase or decrease. The only question is which team has more bodies on point. If it's 1 higher, it's going to tick for that team. If it's 10 higher, it's going to tick for that team. So what that means is we don't need everyone on point, right? We don't need everyone on point. If the point team is on point, right, we got 5-10 folks on point, and they're so I was thinking we would go outside, but I guess we can just do it here. And they're like coming in the door, or they're rotating from B to C, and like let's pretend this is C, right, and let's pretend like this is bonfire or something like that. So we have our point group on point, and let's see, group 6, we're top right, so that's where I would be, is somewhere around here. Let's say that they're rotating from B to try to get to point. What should we be doing? What we should be doing is we should be playing up here on bonfire as group 6. We should be up here, we should be taking up space, we should be preventing them from getting to point. Us being on point or near point does not help. Point team being on point helps. Us preventing them from getting to point is far more important than us being on point. So if they're rotating, we should be up here, we should be engaging them, we should be creating a line, again playing loose, but creating a line that they have to push through. And again, if they ball up as they're pushing through, that may create a very good opportunity for us to get some kills. So we want to be out here, we want to be playing loose, we want to be playing off point, and we want to, honestly, if there was a big rotate and I'm in group 6, right, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be coming up here, instead of looking for a good crash, I'm going to be trying to get aggro, right? I'm going to be trying to distract them from getting to point. I'm going to be using hammer abilities. I'm going to be just, fucking shit up. Because it's more important that they get distracted by me than it is, we want them distracted by me instead of getting to point, right? So you want to be up here, you want to be taking up space. I forget which group is where. I think group 5 is bottom right, so that means group 3 is top left. But let's say you're in group 3, right? And the crash is, or the rotate is coming. Where should you be playing? You should still be playing loose, right? So you should not be up with group 6 up here on bonfire. Instead, what you should be doing is you should be playing back a little bit. Again, you're not on point, right? And you're not in your original position. The main position of the army is shifted over here, right, to match them coming in and rotating. Instead, yeah, exactly. Loose is the name of the game, absolutely, in war. Instead, you're playing loose, right? So you're looking for someone who pushes through group 6, and you're looking for good opportunity. You're also looking for, let's see, this would be alley or whatever, but you're looking for people wrapping, right? And you want to prevent them from wrapping and getting to point. So in that situation, if they stop committing to bonfire and start committing to trying to wrap, then you would be engaging them over here, right? Again, off of point, distracting them from point, dictating where the fight is, right? That's a big skill for bruisers. Again, we talked about vision being really important. Bruisers want to be dictating where the fight is and how the fight happens. So yeah, play loose, look for people peeling. If they just try and push up in the middle, again, that might create a good opportunity for you guys to get a crash and to fuck them up because they just tried to push through and YOLO in. And then in group 6, I'll still be up here, right? I'll still be up here trying to distract them, trying to prevent them from getting through, so that only those folks who ball up and play tight and become a good opportunity for a crash are the ones getting through. Any questions there? I feel like I just unloaded a lot.
And then to be obvious, it'll be vice versa if they're rotating from the other point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the big thing is we as the army don't want to be centered on point unless the other army is also centered on point. If the other army's center is over here, right, this is where, the averages or whatever, or well, I don't know how to describe that, but the center of the army, when you take everybody together, is over there. We want the center of our army to be somewhere over here, right? So we still have our point group in the back, staying on point, staying on task, taking point. Everyone else, we've shifted over. And in group 6, if it was the other side, right, then we would be the ones playing loose, looking for people who are YOLOing, looking for people who are wrapping. And then group 3, they would be up here, at this, spearhead of the army, right, playing aggressively, trying to get aggro, trying to prevent people from pushing through, taking up space.
Just a little side note for healers in those kinds of situations where the army is pushed up their road or pushed off left or whatever. Oftentimes, healers can get their boots on point with the point team because that's essentially the back line.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so I have a couple scenarios. We already talked about rotations. Okay, so for quad bruisers, which is the main bruiser role, when we do have their army centered on point and our army is centered on point, we do not need to be on point. Okay, if we hear boots on point, right, what that means is we should be kind of moving in and out, right? We should be very near to point. If they say everyone on point, yeah, we should be on point. But until that call is made, we're still just in our space. Right, and the reason for that, again, is playing loose. We want to keep space. We want to occupy an area. If they ball up, they become a target. If we ball up, we become a target. So we want to stay in our space. We want to be engaging them. We want to be getting our great axe attacks in. We want to be looking for opportunities for a crash. So until we're at that final point where we're all boots on point, that's when we're on point. Let's see, another scenario is, let's say that we do get some good kills, right? And let's say that we're attacking. So we're attacking and we get some good kills against them. The tick is going well. They don't have a lot of people on point. What should we be doing in that scenario? Well, they may call boots, all boots on point, then we should be on point, right? But if they don't call that, we should be going up to where they're respawning, which is over here, and we should be distracting them and keeping them from getting to point. Right, it's like a rotate. Again, the center of mass for the army, for their army in that situation, is up here. This is where their center of mass is when they're getting respawns. At least I think that's true. I think there's other places they can respawn. But if that's the case, we should be equidistant basically between their center of mass and the point. So the center of mass for our army should be right about there. So as group 6, we should be up here. And we should be preventing them from getting to point. Again, because the tick is just one more person, us being on point doesn't help anything. Us preventing them from getting to point is very crucial. Okay, we talked about groups on the weak side versus the strong side. I guess just to solidify that, because we're talking about rotates. Right, so if the center mass of their army is over here, then that's the strong side, obviously. So in this scenario, group 6 would be the strong side, so we're playing aggressively. Group 3 up top here is the weak side, so they're playing loose. Right, so we went through that. Okay, I think that's everything I had for bruisers. So I have a quick thing for IGVG, but since we've gone through all that and positioning, any questions? Again, no stupid questions. Any questions?
Got a couple typing.
yeah, I see that.
We can also, if you guys want to, we can get into groups and do a group duel and practice this shit if you guys want to as well.
Yeah, that'd definitely be good. But yeah, I got a quick.
Oh, go ahead. Especially since we're not getting contested at Restless, we might as well just take it while we can.
Okay, cool. All right, so I want to do a quick thing on IGVG. So I ran that a bit. So I just want to do a quick point on it because it goes with Bruiser play and what we've been talking about. So really quickly on builds, what I do is I do 250. I don't know if my food is still on. I don't think it is. I do 250, 100, and then the rest con. The reason I do that is that you do want 250 for dots. I do 100 focus mainly so I don't run out of mana, to be honest. So I don't have to right-click with VG. If you're comfortable right-clicking with VG, then you probably don't need this, but I think that that's wasted because it takes you away from spamming VG. And obviously you don't have room for a mana pot on your bar because you're running cleanse pots. Okay, and then, I mean, the 250 health or con thing is silly, but, you know, you can run it. I don't think there's room to run 300 int, so I think 250, 100 focus. That's what I run if you want to run 250, 50, and well, also you don't need grit, right? So like running 300 con also doesn't help you. So like these two perks, like all you're getting from these is just more health. I also run more health than other IGVG, so I can get away with running less con. That's just how I play. But anyway, let's talk about abilities real quick. In Bruisers, this is important because, again, Oblivions are going to empower you, and they're also going to take away your buffs. So understanding what the opposing team's IGVG, I think, what they do, is very important. And also IG is really good in crashes. Okay, for IG, I believe this is like a 100% meta tree. I've spent a lot of time on it, so I think it's all correct. For a little while, I was actually not running Entombed, and I was running Ultimate Chill. I mean, I just could get away with it, I'll be honest. But you do want to be running Entombed. Obviously, Entombed after the most recent update is less valuable than it used to be. So it used to be the case that you would get in a frosted area, and then you would use and break Entombed, and that would reduce your cooldown significantly. That's no longer the case. You can see my cooldowns are now pretty long, despite using all of my abilities in a frosted area. That used to be the case, not the case now. I think it still does make sense to run a lot of refreshing on your armor. I don't, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But for my build, let's see. I do Deadly Frost, of course, on the weapon. Yeah, the extra damage, of course, from rooted or shielded enemies is good. Let's see, I run Unending Thaw, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for IG. Okay, so we've covered IG. What you want to be doing with IG, and this is very important, but what you want to be doing is, let's say that there's a Gravwell and a crash happening right here in center point. And I'm in group 6, so I'm top right. So that crash is happening center of point. What should I be doing when that happens? Ideally, I would already be up here and I would have an Oblivion down and all that stuff, right? I'd be doing my VG spam, and we'll get to that. But when that crash is happening, you want to be putting an ice shower kind of in a square, right? So group 6, we're putting it like right here. Group 5, I think, is down here, so they would be putting it like right here. That means group 4 would be putting theirs here, and then group 3 would be putting theirs here. The idea is that we have a square of ice showers around the crash, preventing people from escaping, right? Because their cleanse pots are going to run out as they're doing that crash if they pre-potted, which they should be doing. So we can put those ice showers down and prevent them from getting out. I mean, obviously you could put it, directly on the crash if that makes sense. Use your judgment. But if everyone is moving from not in the crash to in the crash, you want to be putting it a little bit outside of the crash. Okay. And I'm no expert. There are better IGVGs, so definitely go with what they say. But this is how I've been playing it. Okay. That said, I don't think IGVG is your primary. I think it's very good in crashes. You want to be using Ice Storm, stuff like that. Let's see, for weapon perks, you do want to be running Diminishing Orb on the weapon. You do not want to be running Scream on the weapon. The reason for that is that the disease cap is 50%, I think, so you're going to be getting them close to the disease cap regardless, right? So the armor perk is fine for Putrefying Scream. Diminishing Orb is pretty good. Like, you're going to be reducing buffs just like you would be doing with Oblivion, just taking away their buffs. You're reducing it by 75%. So if it's like a Mauler stack, you're reducing those from 3 seconds to what, less than a second? That's pretty good. Like, that's very good. So that's why you want to be running that. For IGVG play, what I do, honestly, is I just spam VG. Like, VG is very good. It has very good cooldowns. It would be good to demonstrate it, but I'll just demonstrate it on the dummies. So let's take a quick look, right? So the combo that you would be doing, you should be putting down Oblivion first. You can Scream first instead. That's your call. But if you put the Oblivion down, anyone you hit in that Oblivion gets weakened. And, you know, there's other stuff that happens in Oblivion. But you want to be doing that. Okay, so you put down Oblivion. It's now on a 15-second timer. I'm going to send my orb out. I got 2 crits on that, and it went to 8 seconds. So I got a 50%-ish reduction just in sending an orb and hitting 2 targets. Right, so we'll do that again. We'll do Scream this time. I got 1. Okay, I think I only hit 1 of the targets there. But again, I got 2 crits, and it basically took my Oblivion cooldown in half. So let's try that one more time. So Oblivion, Scream, Orb, and you pop the orb, and see now I'm at 3 seconds, right? And this is just on 2 people. And now I have overlapping Oblivions. That's your goal when you're playing IGVG. You want to be putting down those overlapping Oblivions. You want to be hitting people in those Oblivions because that gives them weaken. And yeah, you just want to be spamming abilities, honestly. Like, once you have Mad Gauntlets, VG is a completely different weapon than without Mad Gauntlets. So when you have Mad Gauntlets and you're playing VG, you're spamming abilities. Far more powerful than IG, I think. I think of IG as being what was primary before Mad Gauntlets, but with Mad Gauntlets, I mean, I think it's very clear that VG with the cooldowns and overlapping Oblivions is just super powerful. Yeah, and again, you want to be popping your orbs so that there are 2 hits instead of 1. And you want to be popping those on a clump. And like, if you see a clump that's just off in the distance somewhere and no one's hitting it, no one's been hitting it, perfect way to reduce your cooldowns, right? Just send it, pop it, get all of those hits, get your cooldowns.
So it's only when you deploy the Oblivion that they get the weekend, not if they like walk into it afterwards or something? Right?
So if you get a hit in an Oblivion, they get the weekend. And I believe that counts if the Oblivion is going, or if the orb is going towards them, and not just when you pop it. I'm pretty sure it's a double dip that you get, that counts as 2 hits. I might be wrong about that. But
I think it's the nullifying Oblivion that has to hit on it, like when it's dropped.
oh yeah, to take it away. Yeah, to take away the buffs.
Yeah, like
right.
you can, if you dodge the drop of it, then that,
Yep.
like you can't just walk into an Oblivion and have it remove your buffs.
Right. Right. Yeah, so you'll see that when you're running IGVG, you'll see people dodge your nullifying Oblivion. And, yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah.
So it's only on deploy. Alright.
Yeah, it's only on deploy. But
was
again,
curious.
oh yeah, no, that's a good point. But again, with Orb, right, Orb of Decay, that has that 75% reduction, which basically does the same thing. So you want to be doing that, you want to be popping it for the same purpose. And again, if you hit within the Oblivion, that has those extra debuffs. Let's see, I didn't talk about my VG tree. I believe this is standard as well. I'm kind of not I'm not a big fan of Void Collar, but you know, why not? I don't run Harvest Essence, wherever that is. Cleansing Harvest. Yeah, this one. I do not run this because I don't right click. But if you do right click, then this does make sense for sure. And maybe swap out Void Collar for it, honestly. I don't know. But there's a lot of perks here that you absolutely want. You want the Empowers, you want the Fortifies. You want all of the crit stuff, obviously. Oh, and just assume that you are never doing any ranged attacks with VG. So, no heavy attacks with VG, no light attacks either, unless you're just doing it for cooldown reduction. Like you used all your abilities, and you didn't get many hits, so you just need to get more cooldown. Okay, and then again, how this relates to Bruiser play. You want to be following your Bruisers. Like, yeah, I'll put my VG tree up here in a sec. But you want to be hugging your Bruisers, you want to be following them, and again, you want to get your Oblivion down, you want to get your weakens against the opposing team, you want to be ready to switch to IG, you want to be using your Ice Storms, or, sorry, your, I forget the name of which is which. You want to be using... yeah. So you want to be using your Ice Storms liberally. Ice Shower, you want to be using when you can trap somebody or when it can help secure a kill. So again, crashes are a perfect example of that. And we talked about Entomb, and that just making, well, it's just increased survivability now. It's not really a CDR thing like it was. So yeah, IG has been nerfed again in this patch, so I would say even more so. Well, and VG was buffed with Mad Gauntlets. So Mad Gauntlets are even more important. Even more important, but VG is also more important than IG with this last update than it was, and it was already more important. Yeah, this is my VG tree. Yeah, again, Scream, Oblivion, Orb of Decay, straightforward, absolutely want those. If you're running some healer stuff, or like some PvE stuff, then, you could try some other things. But you absolutely want to be doing this for War. Let me go back to my notes. Okay, yeah, timing Oblivion for crashes is ideal. If not, you can still hit them with Orb to get debuffs. And again, just keep in mind that it's a weekend, so if your team is getting crashed on and they're standing in your Oblivion, throw an Orb at them, Oh, Mikro said something weird on the what was it? The tier list on armor perks the other day, which was something about, it was the Shirking Fort. So he was saying that for whatever reason, IGVG can no longer remove buffs the same way that it used to. I don't know what he was talking about. I don't think that's accurate.
They don't survive on point. That's why, like, they're instant kill target, and you see less of them in wars than old meta, where you would get more of them on point.
Okay.
So it's a good point. If you watch a lot of wars, if you see a VG doing his thing, like, he needs to die.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, if you are VGIG, like, honestly, you should be one of the last ones to go down. Even if you're getting targeted, like, work with your healer, you should be staying up. You're the heavy in your group. You have Entombed. You should be staying up past the rest of your team, in my opinion. So just, keep in mind you get fortifies when you're doing your abilities next to people. Again, you don't have to be next to someone to remove their buffs. Again, if you hit I was thinking about weekend. But if you do hit somebody with Orb and you have that weapon perk, you're also reducing their buffs, right? Just like you are with Nullifying Oblivion. It just takes a second longer, basically. So I don't think that's accurate. I don't think Shirking Fort is good. I think IGVG is still fucking shit up. I don't know. That's my opinion. And like, I think if you look at our wars, like, I've seen Feline doing really solid, and when I've been running it, we've been, like, pretty close on the scoreboard. So I think IGVG is still really good and still doing a lot of work. So I would still bank on buffs not lasting very long, and for VG play, again, just stressing the spam and stressing debuffing or removing buffs from the opposing team.
So Lily just said this in company chat. For IGVG players, please
Oh yeah,
calm that you are entombing, because when you are in your tomb, we cannot heal you. The
Yeah.
heal will not proc even though
Yeah.
we target you.
And then and even if you're just like, oh, it's not a big deal, it's like it becomes a big deal when that heal could have gone somewhere else. And
Yeah.
Wasted cooldown. Yep.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And you can also calm like shortly before you come out, so your healer is ready to heal you, because the divine cast is kind of a little bit long. So you can just say you're coming out
Breaking
like a
two.
moment before, yeah,
Yeah.
and then they can start the cast.
Yeah, I would say though that again, going to the comm priorities, IGVG would be the lowest priority other than DPS in the group. So if your Bruiser is calling stuff, you know, those are the most important comms for your group. So yeah, if you are doing something that your healer needs to know, absolutely makes sense. If you do see something, like you see a good crash opportunity, feel free to ping that. But I mean, just saying this as someone who ran IGVG, I did not find that my calls were super important. So anyway, just about group comms. But again, you're a
That's
setup
why
artist,
everybody
so-
talks over each other.
Yeah.
Just got to get good at sorting it out.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's group play, right? That's playing together. Again, I feel for those comms. Okay, that was an hour and a half. I think we're good. I think we're done covering everything I had in my notes. Again, the notes are in Discord in that text file. They're not pretty, but that's basically just what I went through in this workshop.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we went over 2 slots on the roster, so of course it's going to go a little longer.
Yeah. Well, and again, there could be more in-depth stuff for IGVG. I just wanted to do this mainly in the context of crashes and bruising. But yeah, the positioning stuff, honestly, that could be like we could spend several hours just talking about that.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting this together, Bender.
Yeah,
Good job,
absolutely. Hope you guys learned some stuff.
I learned a lot about Great Axe and Warhammer, that's for sure.
I can't stress enough, though, like, if you really find somebody that plays your class well, and they probably got a Twitch, and just watch their wars, see what they do.
Ask your
Helps.
questions now. If you guys have any questions, type it, or you can speak it, whatever you want to do.